That's fucking minging, though.
I don't care. I love it. I don't care.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Roker Report podcast in association with the Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen. It's Gav and you join me as I'm thawing out, having just got back from the Sunderland match at the Stadium of Light. Ice cold conditions. We lost 2-1 to Stoke City in the FA Cup in extra time. I'm still shivering. I'm trying to warm up. I hope you all appreciate it that we're back here really quickly after full time. I'm with Chris again. Hello, mate.
Hello. Yes, that was a complete waste of time.
It was a little bit of a waste of time. Look, it was, but
It was.
my opinion is that you have to try and extract some positives from those kind of games. A bit like a pre-season friendly, you know.
That's
there
what it
were
was.
bits and pieces.
The first
So,
half, especially first half, that's what it was.
yeah, well, it was, you know, even from getting into the ground, I wasn't in my normal seat because you couldn't get in my normal seat because I normally sit in the southwest corner. So I was crammed into a seat in the southeast corner with my knees right up against the chair in front, which wasn't very nice. It was freezing cold. I normally stand the whole game, which is actually a lot warmer than sitting down on them cold plastic seats. Second half, we moved over to the south stand in the Roker end where the safe standing is. That was a little bit better atmosphere and stuff. But yeah, we still froze to death. So we didn't even get to celebrate a win at the end of it. But I say celebrate a win. I'm actually not that bothered that we didn't get through. I just wish we'd have done it in normal time, got beaten normal time, rather than making me stand there for an extra 40 minutes or whatever it was.
I said at the end of the game, I said that I would have rather us actually been beaten 4-5 out, not pick up any injuries, which we'll come on to, and just been beaten without playing extra time. And if that had happened, I would have been like, aye, all right, move on. Let's move on.
Yeah.
But I liked how you said we're going to be trying to pick the positives out of it, and then you spent the next minute whinging about everything. Is that what we're going to get?
Positives. Let's start with the positives because there were
Really?
negatives,
Do we
but let's start with the
know
positives.
where to end with the positives?
No.
Okay.
Let's start with the positives since we're on
Right.
the subject. I thought Leo Hjelde had a very good game.
He did actually.
Yeah.
I mean, but I still think of him. I still think he's a centre half every time I see him play. He might have to be a left back because of what we'll come on to in terms of Alice's injury, and hopefully, I mean, Serkin should be all right. I think there were other circumstances behind Serkin not being involved, but yeah, I mean, you know, with Serkin's hand as well and his arm and him being kind of carrying an injury, we're kind of wrapping him up in cotton wool this season. And to have those two down the left-hand side and Alicia getting injured, Hilda's obviously an option there, but I still see him as a centre-half. But yeah, he did play well. And what I did like about him, he looked tidy on the ball. And there was a couple of really good kind of longer diagonal balls he put over that were like right on point. They were on someone's chest or someone's feet.
He put a good one in for the goal, didn't he, as well?
He did. That was where it all started. And he did. He looked comfortable. But like I said, I still think he's a centre half, and we'll probably come on to it as well. But I think Jones as well. I think him getting onto the pitch and getting the game, and I thought that was a positive as well. And he was someone who I think started off a little bit of a deer in the headlights to start off with. Like, I'm talking really early stages of the game, but you could just tell as the game wore on, he just got more and more into the game and got comfortable playing. And by the end, he didn't look out of place. He looked neat and tidy. And again, we'll probably come into more detail, but the goal as well. Yelder played a brilliant ball, but Jones made a hell of a run. Like really kind of made a 20, 30-yard run to get the ball over the top. And that's what you need from your midfielders. Those midfielders, that was the perfect type of run because that got us 30 yards up the pitch. Then what is it? It's 2 or 3 touches after that. The ball's in the back of the net. So that's what you want from your midfield players. So, I think, we can take those positives out. People getting minutes on the pitch like those two.
Yeah, just on Jones, I think, he didn't stand out a mile, but that was actually a positive in many respects. He just fit in. He looked okay.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't expecting to see him run the show or anything, but he just looked tidy. He looked exactly like the kind of midfielder we've got at the club who can just sit in there and move the ball around quickly. He looks neat and tidy.
Yeah.
I think he's going to go out on loan, but it was just nice to see him get a game. I think he's deserved it. I saw the tweet from his dad before the game talking about how it's like the proudest moment of his life. Like, well, you know, we maybe take those things for granted when we think about games like this. We're like, oh God, we could really do without it and all that. But for that lad, that was like the biggest moment of his life, getting to play for Sunderland at the Stadium of Light in a first team game, you know. So fair play to him, he did well. And, you know, he sort of tired towards the the end of his time on the pitch, which I think is why he came off, but really happy with him.
And just on that, I mean, you're talking about, being the proudest day of his life, all that sort of stuff. And I mean, I think it's a sign of the times, obviously, but 19 years old, you would like to think someone had a few more games under his belt by that point. Because, I mean, all right, 19 isn't kind of ancient, but at that point, I mean, you go back in time and, you start picking up games when you're 18, and then 19, you're starting to really kind of push to get in match day squads and things like that, which all right, he's been on the bench quite a few times, but you'd like to think he'd had a few more games under his belt. And all right, it's the progression of the club. I think if we were lower down, he'd have been brought in earlier. But the other thing is, and look, it's brilliant for the lad. I absolutely, it's kind of long overdue almost, because he looks like a good player. But we touched on that first half being like a pre-season friendly, and for me, it's a little bit sad in terms of being an FA Cup third round game. It just feels a little bit sad, like that. That's what it feels like now, and the whole extra time, and it just doesn't.
It's not the same FA Cup, is it? It's not the same one that I grew up with.
Exactly, no. It doesn't. Like my lad, like, all right, he's not. I'm trying to get him into Sunderland, but football's a bit different now, where they follow kind of big players and stuff like that, especially when you're in exile, and it's hard to kind of get to a lot of the games. But like, he was asking what cup we were playing in, and I was like, it's just such a sign of the times that, from being able to walk, I remember knowing about the FA Cup, and it was like the magic of the FA Cup, and that you couldn't wait for the third round draw, and you wanted to know who you got, and it was all exciting, and who could you get in the fourth round, and even actually the prospect of a replay used to be, oh, we might get a replay and then play midweek, and all right, you're kind of young and excited about everything, don't get us wrong, but it used to be different. It used to feel different, and I'm gonna, I'll hold my hands up. I'm feeling and sounding like an old, beep, but it just feels different, and I feel really sad about it, to be honest, because I think there was something different. There was something different about the FA Cup. It just felt different. I remember being younger than my lad is now for the Port Vale game in '92, third round of the FA Cup. Playing Port Vale, crap team, but it was the third round of the FA Cup. And it started off the journey of getting through the final, and I was there, and I was in the full end that day. And I always remember being there and getting through the fourth round, being excited about it. And then the next year, getting Sheffield Wednesday away. And I remember Tony Norman making the mistake, but it was like, it's FA Cup, we're playing a big team. And it's just funny, it's just different. And I feel it's just something sad about it.
I think Sean needs to put the theme music from Last of the Summer Wine over that. That little monologue. Hey, you pissed all over me positivity parade. I was trying to go through positives.
Well, that wasn't about Sunderland. That was just about the cup. That wasn't about the lads. It was about footy.
We briefly talked about the goal. That was a big positive. I thought Milan Aleksic took it really well. If you think the limited amount of chances he's had some really big moments in games, like in terms of in front of goal, hasn't he? And really glad for him that he got that. It was a lovely move. I mean, you touched on it before. It was sort of a long ball from Hjelde up to Harrison Jones, who held it up well. Was it Oshish played him in?
It was. It was, because Jones chested it down and laid it off to him, and Oshish had a couple of touches. Great pass from Oshish. But the other thing is, you're talking about Aleksic and his run, exactly the same as Jones. So Jones is running down the left channel, and then the ball pops out to Oshish, and Aleksic makes that run from the right channel, diagonal run right across. But you've got two midfield players making runs like that. I mean, that's exactly what you want. That's brilliant. Yeah. I mean, two lads young lads, using their brains, getting into really good positions, using their engines as well, the fact that they're young and they can do that. And it was funny, it was interesting, because Aleksic he was on the pitch 20 minutes, and he'd already was second in the leaderboard in terms of most touches in the opposition's box. He had four touches in 20 minutes. It just shows that the type of player he is, getting forward, making those forward runs. And that's exactly the type of position you want to be in when people are picking the ball up on the edge of the box. And I thought that was brilliant to watch from the two of them. Yeah.
Before we flip into negatives, because this one is one that pivots on it, I was really happy with Salis Abdul Samed getting on the pitch and just seeing him. Yeah, he wasn't like 100 mile an hour, and you know, I think you'd probably see a very different version of him in a competitive league game. But that's his first touches of a ball all season. Did okay, actually, looked pretty tidy. I don't think he really exerted himself. He was just happy to be on the pitch and get some minutes. And this is what I mean about flipping into the negative, because the fact that it went to extra time, was probably of benefit to only him, really, because he needed minutes. Ultimately, it wasn't great that we went in extra time. Actually, on top of that, I've got another one because I'm just looking at the team here. I thought Zach Johnson played well. I did. I thought he did okay. Looked pretty tidy.
Neat and tidy, aye. Mm-hmm. Yeah, neat and tidy. I mean, didn't do much wrong, but it was a funny type of game. And actually, just before I forget about the goal, the last bit about the goal when Aleksic ran in, and he got the run on Lyndon Gooch. So Lyndon Gooch was like 3 yards behind him, and Lyndon Gooch completely lost his run. And Lyndon Gooch turned around and blamed everyone else. It was like he started.
Where have we seen that before?
He turned around and started shouting at everyone else, and I was like, "You lost your runner," and he ran off him and got in there first. But yeah, in terms of Salas and getting on the pitch, he did all right. He did all right, but it was an interesting one for him to come in on because I know it sounds weird, but on a day like that when the temperatures are that low, everything feels different. Like the ball feels different. You know what I mean? It's like controlling the ball, trapping the ball feels different. The ball bounces a bit differently. So, I mean, talk about rustiness. I mean, you could see he was rusty. I mean, you probably, he came in the summer injured. So you're looking at last April, May? Last time he probably played? So you're talking...
I think he had one pre-season game in the summer.
But competitive
Something
game.
like that.
But if you're looking at...
No, competitive
game,
time.
you're talking what? Like 7 months? Yeah, 8 months, something like that.
7, 8 months,
so that's a long time to be out. And to come on in a game like that, and, in temperatures like that where you come on and you're freezing cold and it takes a while to warm up anyway, even if you're starting. But when you come on a sub, it's a tough one when you come on a sub in games like that to get used to it. But what I quite liked about him, you could tell he was rusty on the ball, which is going to be obvious. But you could tell his instinct being in the right place at the right time, and you could see he always offered himself for a pass, and he always got in front of the back four, and he was always in the right place, and you can just tell that's habit because he's played at the high level for so long, and he knows where to be, and he'll get that kind. You're talking about being rusty on the ball, that'll come with minutes, that'll come with getting his fitness back, but you could just tell his instinct for being in the right place. He was dropping into the places where we're seeing Dan Neil drop into quite a lot. And you can see that Dan Neil potentially moving up the pitch a little bit. If he gets in the team and we can start rotating things where if he comes in and he can sit in front of the back four, Dan Neil can push forward. So already, like you said, you were trying to pick the bones out of it because it was a weird sort of game. It was really slow tempo. Temperature had a part to play in how, the players mentally dealt with the game. But you could just tell he just knew where to stand on the pitch. And that's instinct, and you can just tell he's a good player. There's a lot to come, and we're going to see more of him. He's going to improve, but just by his instinct of that and knowing how to receive that pass and where people expected him to be, you can see he's a decent player.
Last positive, and another one which just came to us, we're out. The first time in a very long time I've went to a game, and my mentality going in was, I don't want to go through, but I don't want this to be a really disappointing performance where we're like there's a lot of concerns coming out of it. I was like, close gate, let's keep it close. Let's just get minutes for players who need it. Let's go out. We don't need to be in the FA Cup this year. We've got an automatic promotion race to concentrate on. I mean, had we got through, we would have had to postpone the Watford game, which is just kicking the can down the road. So you see when you get into this next round, the Watford game then ends up being a midweek in April or something. It's like, it sounds stupid, and it sort of ties into something you've already mentioned about how the FA Cup just isn't viewed the same anymore.
Yeah.
But really, our priority isn't the FA Cup. So the fact we went out, I'm pleased about, really, and I think most Sunderland fans would say the same, if I'm honest.
Well, I mean, we've got the added benefit of having the evidence of us saying it before the game, because we both talked about it on the pod before the game and said we weren't asked about this game, and all we were looking for was for players who needed minutes to get on the pitch. And the other thing, unfortunately, we were looking for it to come through without any injuries. And it looked a bad one with Alese.
It's his ankle, isn't it?
He went over, and when players fall backwards and hurt themselves with their ankle and with their legs like that, it's like, that when you see a runner, a sprinter, and he falls back on himself, and something's really gone bad. And you could tell with a pitch, and it looked like his ankle got trapped in, his studs got trapped, his ankle twisted, and it just looks a nasty one. And you could tell by his reaction as well. He was absolutely gutted, and you could tell he at least thought at that point it was a bad one. Hopefully it'll come out and it's not as bad as everyone thinks it is. But that's what we wanted to come out the game without. and unfortunately we got one. And on a day like that, in a game like that, it was just kind of inevitable, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, he said after the game that it looked serious.
Yeah.
The manager. So yeah, I mean, we'll not speculate too much. I just think it was easy to say. I noticed obviously when I'm stood there in the ground, almost immediately they called for the stretcher. So the St John's ambulance stretcher came on.
Yeah.
And there wasn't even like a period of 30 seconds to a minute where they're checking him out, and it's like, no, they knew it was bad, and they were like, all right, get the stretcher on. And I think the guy came on with a gas tank as well in case he needed that.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't that bad, thankfully, in terms of needing gas and air, but he looked in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
I mean, all I could see was sort of gritting his teeth and really like, not just gritting his teeth, but he looked gutted. And I'm not surprised because he's just been permanently injured since he came here, really. It's like, I just feel gutted for him because he's playing well as well. I think he's playing fine.
Yeah.
I suppose the reassurance was Hjelda's performance because he's going to have to step up now and he's going to have to come in where we would normally use Alese in games. Yeah, we're going to need another fullback. We're going to need to because even if it's not as bad as we first fear, he's going to be out a little while at least. And we haven't got the cover in those positions already. So I think it's just a case of now we've got as we've done with this central midfield position with Le Fee, I think we've got to go out and get a fullback who can play on both sides, who's good enough to play at the top end of the championship. That's going to be tough, but you know that's what you've got this recruitment team for and scouts and stuff. I would, to be honest, I would suppose that we were going to try and do that anyways. This maybe just this just sticks a rocket up them and makes it more important than it already was. But I'm gutted for Alese, like I really am, because I just think when we were talking before the game and on the Twitter space as well that we did on Friday night, we were talking about how for the Burnley game we would prefer Alese at left back because it makes more sense away from home against a strong side. You would have him in ahead of Sirkin, so that's how important he's become. You know, people have been talking about Dennis Sirkin being the best left back in the division, and he's just had a little wobble. Alese's come in and done really well. So, yeah, it's a sore one, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and it's like we were talking about in the last pod as well, the contrast that you can have on our left-hand side with Alese or Sirkin, and you've seen that the manager's been using them like that. He's been, if we need a goal, Sirkin's in there, or if we want to be more on the front foot at home, Sirkin's been put in. You know, if we want to be a little bit more defensive on that left-hand side, Alese has come in, or if we want to shore up the last 20 minutes when we're 1-0 ahead, 2-1, whatever, Alese has been coming on. So he had that, you know, a really good kind of balance on that left-hand side where he could kind of switch them out. And it's just unfortunate. I mean, like I said, I think Alese would get into 90% of championship sides as a first choice. We were kind of blessed to have probably the two of the best left backs in the division. Yeah, I mean, he is going to probably look at having one because we are light on the right-hand side as well. You know, obviously, the name that springs to mind is Huggins as well, who, you know, at this point would have been ideal cover because on either side. So yeah, you can potentially see a loan signing, someone who, you know, and I'm thinking back. I know that one didn't work out, but I remember when Vaughan signed, where he was kind of highly rated in the Premier League at the time as a young lad, kind of coming through Southampton. I could see something like that. Hopefully, it works out better this time, of course, because Vaughan's was crap with us, but. But I can see a signing like that.
Let's talk about the goals we conceded. I mean, I don't think we should beat ourselves up too much for these, but only because it's a cup game and, you know, Dan Neil had a shocker. I think, to put it lightly, I think he's been brilliant recently. But that first one, he plays it's not just him, by the way, but it all stems from he played a chest-height pass, smashed at Moore, who actually controlled it fairly well under the circumstances and played it to O'Nien a little bit short, and then O'Nien's touch was heavy and then he ends up giving away a penalty. But it all stems from that mistake from Dan Neil, doesn't it? Yeah. And you think, oh, bloody, that's the worst possible way to start the game. It was, 2 or 3 minutes in and we're a goal down, and it's all from our own mistakes. And we spend a lot of time talking about how, like, or I do anyways, not just on podcasts, but away from, like, generally talking football about the amount of teams who try to play out from the back and they concede stupid goals as a result. That was that. It was just stupid. There was no need for it. We were in control of the ball. We put ourselves under pressure and then we're 1-0 down. It was daft, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And it's this. I think it's the mentality that we went into the game with. I think when you're fans and we're thinking the way we're thinking about the game, that if we know how passionate we are about Sunderland, and if we're thinking we don't really give a shit about the game, you can almost feel it coming from the players a little bit. And I don't think that happens in the Championship when we play. We don't tend to take massive risks like that. We don't make too many mistakes when we're passing it about in our own kind of half like that. Yeah, if anyone listened to me on the original pod, I mean, I wouldn't have had Dan Neil in there anyway. I wouldn't have had Rig in there either. I don't think I would have really kind of just swapped everything out, because it's a game Dan Neil didn't really need and didn't really look up for. He's been brilliant lately. I mean, he's been, and I've said it, that he's possibly one of the best midfielders in the Championship. I mean, I think he is when he's on it. I don't think anyone can touch him in that position, but he had an absolute stinker, and I just think that's a mentality we went into the game with. I mean, come on to the second goal as well. I mean, he gets to that ball first in a league game. Simple as that. Simple as that. He runs through it, gets the ball, nips it off. He doesn't let the player nick it from him and go through.
Do you not think he looked really uncomfortable when he went centre half though?
Oh yeah,
it happened. I think it was two other occasions before that second goal where he thought he had more time on the ball than he did, and he lost it. And I'm thinking, what? But he won't ordinarily play there, so it's not a big deal.
But when you've got a player like that who's right, I mean, because he's been brilliant in recent games, so he's got his rhythm going, he's got his mojo there, he knows what he's doing. When you're talking about players, sometimes it's all about momentum, and Dan Neil's a big player with that. Like when he's off, he has a good few weeks off, and then when he gets going and he knows what he's doing and he's into his rhythm, he's pretty consistent. But he didn't need that game where he was knocked out of it, and I just felt, like pull him out, like give him a break and get him raring to go for that Burnley game. And he didn't need this. And when he's out of his rhythm like that, you then worry about him getting back into it.
And then he plays 120 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. He just didn't need it.
He looked gutted by the end as well. I was watching him after the full-time whistle went, and he was sat on the pitch, just knackered, inconsolable, whipping his shin pads out of his socks. And then Gooch came over and gave him a big hug because he looked distraught with himself because he'd made that mistake.
Well, you could argue that he made those two mistakes really for the goal. I mean, look, he was dealt a bad pass, for the
was it Salis?
Yeah, for the second one. But still, I mean, he still could have gotten there first and dealt with it, but he didn't. You could argue that he made kind of a couple of mistakes for their two goals, but at the same time, he's probably thinking, I've just put in 120 minutes, I've put in all that graft.
For nout.
Yeah, for what?
Yeah, I think if we'd had, if we'd had more options, he might not have played as long. But then Job, Mepham, Isidore were all sat on the bench, weren't there? And I think that was kind of a sign of what the manager actually wanted from this and what he felt about this game. I know beforehand he said he wanted to win, he wanted to keep momentum. He gave the impression before the game that he wasn't going to make many changes. We still made, 5 changes to the team? So you kind of second-guessed that, when you said before the game, what else is he going to say, really, But I think given that he had strong players on the bench and chose not to bring them on, was a sign that his thoughts were aligned with ours, really, that he wasn't particularly bothered about winning this game. And if anything, we had to use this as an opportunity to give minutes to players who needed it. I mean, Oshish played 120 minutes. That's the most he's played in a very long time. Conley played the full game. And, he's not really had it. I think he's had one other start than this, and he didn't play the full game. Came off at half-time, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, look, we can look at this in a number of ways. To me, it was the best possible result in terms of getting knocked out, not getting battered. We probably dominated the game despite losing. I don't think Stoke really did anything, did they?
Stoke were awful. I mean, I still don't know how they lost that game.
I mean, at the start of the game, by the way, that was their strongest 11, pretty much.
And they were crap. I mean, they were there for if we really wanted that game, even with the team we put out, even if we'd made a few more changes and picked up the tempo, we still could have won that game. But I was just going to say, you mentioned Oshish. I think that's another positive because he played well. And actually, I think with a performance like what he put in, I think he's starting to make the management realise that actually he can be a player, especially in the closing stages of the season when you're going to have tight games, that he can come on and with a pass or with just one action, he can kind of unlock a defence. and you saw that pass through for our goal. He's got that in his locker, so I think he's proven his importance to the team, especially when we've got the injuries we've got. So I think that was another positive. Although again, he didn't need to play 120 minutes either.
No, I think if I was nitpicking though, he missed some sitters, like that one where Mayenda megged the lad on the right wing, put it on a plate to him,
and he stuck it
He's
over
got
the
to
bar.
bury that, like,
He's got to do better. The other thing as well, Mayenda is consistently proven that he needs to improve his finishing.
Yes. Well, he had that one really good chance, didn't he?
Yeah.
And again, he tried to use his right foot. He did this the other week. He tried using his right foot and he hit the side net, and he done the same here. I mean, I can't fault him for trying with his right foot, but he's not a finisher.
No.
However, what I will say about Mayenda, look, he gets a lot of stick for his finishing, and I think it's fair, you know, at the level we're playing, at top end of the championship, you've got to be able to finish if you're playing up front for Sunderland. But at the same time, I don't ever feel like he's out of games. Like, quite often with tricky players, they go missing. He's never missing in games. He always wants the ball. He's always on the ball. He's always a threat because he's a bit erratic. And I think a lot of players, like championship fullbacks, they struggle to handle him because he's quick. He can go down. He can go down the right. He can come inside on his left foot. You saw that with the chance I just talked about for Oshish, where he put on a plate for him. Like, he's a dangerous player, you know. So while yes, it gets frustrating when he misses chances, I think as a young kid it would be very easy, particularly when he's missing big chances, to go missing and go into hiding for his head to drop, and it never does. I reckon that's probably why he gets so many chances and why the manager seems to like him, because it would be a lot easier to drop a player who goes missing in games than it would be to drop somebody who just picks their chin up off the floor and cracks on.
Yeah.
And that's one of his biggest strengths as a player, really.
Yeah, he's really effective. I mean, the amount of times he carries the ball and gets us 30, 40 yards further up the pitch, and he'll take a couple of players out of the game while he's doing it, and he's graft as well. That's one of the reasons he's in the team. You know, he loses the ball, he wants it back, but at the minute he's just, I don't know whether it's confidence or what, or whether it's just, I don't know whether he's snatching at things and it's becoming more and more because he's missing quite a few chances. But at the minute, he's just a bit of a jigsaw, isn't he? He's just, you know, every time he gets a chance, you're just not confident of him sticking it away at the minute. And I'm trying to decide whether it's talent or if it's a mental thing.
Yeah, well, like I say, I still think he, you know, regardless of those misses, he's still playing fairly well.
Yes,
so.
oh no, he deserves to be in there. He could do with taking a couple of these chances.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads us into Burnley. We'll do a preview on Burnley coming up, but it's a big week, isn't it, leading up to that? I mean, we've got an injury to contend with now. We've got, obviously, a new player through the door, in Le Fee, who may well come into contention for that game. Given how big it is, I suspect they won't just chuck him in, but he'll get some minutes in that game. So, look, it's going to be a big week this week. I think at least we've getting minutes into the legs of players who need it. I think there'll be a lot in terms of rumours when it comes to transfers and things between now and that game. Especially with this injury to Elise, we're going to be looking at fullbacks, I think. And, you know, there might be players going out the door who played as well. I think it was a good opportunity for Harrison Jones to show what he can do. Hopefully there's a Football League team looking at him and willing to give him some minutes in the second half of the season. Like I say, you can stew on the negatives. You can whinge about the fact that Dan Neil made a few mistakes. You can whinge about the fact that we got an injury to a key player. There's loads you can whinge about, but I just think really you're best off viewing this game as a pre-season friendly would, and you know, try and just extract positives from it, see what we can learn from it, and move on very quickly. And I think that's the best way forward as we head to Burnley. Just a shame that we lost at home, first loss of the season. Doesn't really count in my mind though. It's not a league game.
After extra time, doesn't count.
I've had me lucky socks on for every home game this season.
Nah,
I mean, Luke 09 socks have never been off. They've been washed, mind, but they've never been off. And
that's your problem.
That's the first time we've lost.
You washed the look off. That's your problem.
Well, I hadn't washed the look off in the other 15 games or whatever we've had at home. I might have to change my socks for the next game. I don't know.
Why
we'll see. Does it count?
It's still fine for the league. It's only the look only counts for the league.
Yeah. We'll forget about it quickly. So we'll be back with a preview leading up to Burnley. It's Friday night, of course, so that one will be out a little bit earlier, hopefully. So make sure you tune in for that. We've got everything coming up this week on the Roker Report website in terms of reaction to this game, building ahead to Burnley, all that other good stuff. There'll be a Twitter space possibly on Thursday this week. We'll see. But we are back with the Friday Night Lives. It might have to be called Thursday Night Live this week. but we'll work that one out the closer we get to it. Cheers, Chris. Thanks for joining us, mate.
No bother.
We'll enjoy your takeaway that I know you're heading off to go and pick up now.
Well, that's it. Highlight of the day. Waste of time, that footy
Yeah,
thing.
well, I need to go and
Waste of
I'm
time.
still freezing. I've been sat here for 40 minutes. I'm still ice cold.
Oh, wait, man, I've
so
got to
I'm
go for
gonna
me bait,
boil
man.
myself
Hurry
in the
up.
bath. Enjoy your Chinese, mate. I'm going to eat a big bag of now, I think. I'm jealous. Cheers and says we'll catch you on the next one.